Hi everybody, thanks for joining in. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video, and I'd appreciate any feedback or comments. Feel free to drop them down in the comments section down below. I do appreciate seeing where you're watching from, as I know most people that have already liked my page are in part of my group, but I do appreciate the feedback. So if you got any comments, feel free to share, good or bad. I'd like to hear it so that I can get better and maybe bring some better content. Hey, the whole premise of my business or my personal page here is to inspire, to encourage, and to provide wellness information to my friends and followers. And I'm going to share with you little things that I pick up through the books that I read. Just recently finished my life coaching course, so I'm going to share with you little tidbits that I picked up from there. In fact, this little bit I'm going to share with you tonight was a pretty inspirational, thought-provoking, insightful thing that was shared with me. And my intention and my hope for sharing this with you is that you might have an aha moment and maybe do some reflection on your life and possibly infuse your life with a little bit of encouragement and inspiration, right? So what I want to talk about tonight is perception. And this, if you understand perception, beliefs, it will help you to understand people a little bit. You know, if we start from the premise that and I think this is true, I don't believe anybody gets up out of bed in the morning with the intention of setting out to ruin somebody's day. I just don't think anybody sets out with the intention in the morning of going out and spoiling somebody's day, being a spoiler, making somebody have a bad day. But oftentimes throughout the day we'll run into people, and sometimes that thought will cross our mind that guy that cut us off, you know, that the guy that just blew by us on an icy road when we're going too slow, he really didn't set out that morning to create a bad day or a bad situation for us. But that's the thought, and that's the perception that we have when things don't go our way. So perception is everything. And, you know, when we talk about perception, it's a shame, but most of us live our entire life right here in our own head. And I say that with this premise or with this thought in mind, that every thought that we have, everything that we think is the absolute truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. That's very true. That's very true. People think the thoughts that go through their mind are absolute truth, and it couldn't be farther from the truth, as you will see as I go on through this whole ordeal about perception. You see, if everybody thinks that everything they think is the absolute truth, it creates a problem. And I say a problem, well, let's just look at the recent controversy that came out of the recent political elections. The controversy that's, I think, still stirring. I don't know, I quit watching the stuff, I turned it off. But whether you're into politics or not, whether who's right or who's wrong, it all goes back to a matter of perception. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, whether you're a horse or a donkey, whether you're red or whether you're blue, whether you're an independent, a conservative, or a liberal, it matters not to who you affiliate with or who you attach yourself with. It's all based on your perception of what you do believe to be right or wrong. You see, our perceptions create our beliefs. Our beliefs determine what kind of person we're going to become or what kind of life we're going to live. Our perceptions create our beliefs, which determine how we're going to treat our wife when we come home from a long, hard day at work. It's our perceptions that determine whether we're going to say yes. Our perceptions create our beliefs that determine whether we're going to say no. It's our perceptions that create our beliefs on how we're going to treat other people that we come in contact with. You know, here's the thought. People never respond or react to reality. People never respond, they never react to reality. People always respond or react to their perception. They respond or react to what they perceive to be the truth. Do you see how perception is everything? Let me share a story with you. So there's this train, And there's only two people in the train. There's an old man sitting in the front row reading a newspaper. He's got his legs crossed. He just got off work, a long, hard day at work. And he's just anxious to get home, to see the missus, to get his food, to get his meal, to get his quiet evening at home, prop his feet up on the couch. So he's sitting in the front stool or the front bench of this train car. Nobody else on the train except for another young man who's sitting in the very last bench or the very last seat all the way on the other side of the aisle. In between those two are two young girls. Just two young girls. So one's got a balloon and the other one's got a bag of candy. And they're chasing each other up and down the aisle, in and out of the other seats, the empty seats, yelling and screaming at each other. You know, this has been going on for quite some time. And the old man sitting in front reading the newspaper, you can see him getting a little fidgety. He's moving around in his chair and he's turning his head. Every now and then he'll turn his head and look back at the young guy sitting in the back who's got his head down like this, right? Resting on his fist or on his resting on his arm. Oh, sorry about that. And trying to get the guy's attention as these girls continue to go up and down. And every now and then the girls will get quiet, and all of a sudden one of them will let out a quick yelp or a quick scream and startle the old guy. He's just about had it. He's at wit's end. He finally breaks. So he gets up out of his chair and he storms back the aisle. I mean, he storms down the aisle. The two little girls in fear, you know, they sit down on one of the benches waiting on the old guy to get past. And he gets back to the young man and he looks down at him and says, "Excuse me, sir," he says in a gruff voice, and a not very nice one at that. He says, "Aren't you aware of what your little girls are doing? These are your girls. How irresponsible of a parent can you be? How can you let them run up and down like this and interfere with everybody else in the car? Where's your responsibility, man? These are your girls. Get responsible." All of a sudden, the young guy, he lifts his head up and looks at the old man. He's got a tear running down the side of his cheek. He said, "I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I'm so sorry my girls are unruly and running wild. But I don't know what to do. We just left their mother's funeral, and I don't know how to be a mother to these little girls. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do." How do you think that old man's perspective, or perception, his perception of that situation might have changed? Do you see how his perception led him to establish his beliefs that created the situation that he found himself in? It was his perception of these young girls running up and down the aisle that they were out of control and unruly, and rightfully so. They were making a lot of noise, and he had every right to be upset at that. But his perception led him to believe that the poor man who just lost his wife in the back row, right, which he now knows to be fact, that he was an unruly, inconsiderate, irresponsible parent. It was his perception of the situation that led him to believe that. And because he believed that perception created a false belief that led him to pass a bad judgment upon another person. Because that young man didn't set out, as I mentioned in the beginning, he didn't get out of bed in the morning with the intent of spoiling that old man's day, by no means. My whole point is, perception is everything. And sometimes we don't get outside of our own head long enough to realize that the beliefs that are created by our perception of life are not always true. And as I close this out, there's two things I want to share it with you. Perception is everything. And I would encourage you to take a few moments. Perhaps there is a situation you're dealing with right now. Perhaps there's a coworker, a relationship with a coworker right now that's just not going real well. Perhaps a little bit of friction between you and your boss. Perhaps there's a situation brewing at home with your wife or one of your children. But I would invite you to take 5 or 10 minutes and sit down and quietly reflect upon the situation and make every attempt to put yourself in their shoes. To rid yourself of any preconceived notions or beliefs that you perceive to be fact, to put those aside long enough to get in their shoes, to see things from their point of view and through their eyes. Perhaps there's a little piece of truth that you might be missing. A little piece of information that might just change your whole perception of everything, as the story of the old man and the young man who had lost his wife, that story illustrated. Just a little piece of information you might be missing. You know, as I close this out, the final thought that I leave you with, and hope will provide you with the encouragement to start looking outside of yourself for some guidance or some direction, life coaching, right? Or any kind of encouragement, or ways to change or increase or improve your situation in life. Perception creates our beliefs, which creates our reality. There are a lot of people in this world that perceive that they're not good enough. There's a lot of people in this world that have the false belief that they can't do it because they are not good enough. And that, my friend, is not the truth. Thanks for watching this evening. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video, and I hope to have more coming at you here soon in the near future. I do appreciate any comments or feedback you leave below. Have a good evening.